we just wanted to kind of create a mashup of all our favourite television series.
My business partner and I have been watching you from our apartment on Baker Street. Your sister has a gift. She can see things normal people cannot.
You know, looking back on the first series, it really is a love letter to crime drama, I suppose.
We'd spend like a lot of time like taking crime shows apart, like how did Cracker deal with this? How did so-and-so deal with this? And like, yeah, then try and reverse engineer it and do the Irregulars version of it.
We wanted to see if we could create a format where Irregulars has its own tone and then throw different genres at it and tell those genres stories in an irregular way. And by far the hardest one to do was the Agatha Christie country house.
Remember, we're not here just to investigate the murder. This is where Charlotte grew up. This house may hold the key to what's going on.
They require you to play by certain rules, and in our series we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got serial, we've got love stories, we've got gang stories, and to try and tell a locked-room murder mystery in 50 minutes alongside that was really tough, but fun. There were quite a few influences, but I would say, weirdly, a lot of the influences were from mid-90s series. Things like X-Files, you know, me and Chris grew up watching that and being scared by it. You just felt like you'd been dragged into it by the sheer kind of imagination and invention of the creators of the show. And the ones that stay with me are the guy you could stretch and you could come down your chimney into your house. And the episode with Giovanni Ribisi in, which was, he was a very troubled boy who could control electricity with his mind.
I think specifically the surreal aspect of Twin Peaks was really, really useful in the early days of the show in terms of like trying to elevate it.
So what's Mr. Holmes like, Mrs. Brown? Does he have any family?
His parents passed years ago.
He has a brother though, right?
We don't talk about that.
You know, the main literary references we used were lots of the Gothic literature, classic Gothic literature. For example, Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley. Arthur Conan Doyle believed in, he was a spiritualist. He was a member of the Golden Dawn Society. He believed in fairies. He was big into mediumship, seances. So his supernatural stories were probably the, I would say, major literary influence on the series. It's a really rich world, and we felt like it hadn't been looked at in great detail in TV before. You know, in episode 3, we kind of meet some characters who are heavily based on members of the Golden Dawn. So we did look into a lot of that, and to present day stuff as well, going forward to MK Ultra, which was the CIA program, sight reading, mediumship program, which Uri Geller was involved in. And this stuff is real. This stuff's on record. It's not like we've invented these kind of crazy things. They exist in the real world.
We sort of looked at a lot of gang shows and sort of gang movies because that was the key thing. Like, it's a sense of a group of people that kind of piss each other off, but also love each other. That was really important to the show. The first group of kids in Skins was, for me, a really useful touchstone.
I say this world extends way beyond this little field of dreams we're dancing in, and I want to see that world.
When building characters for a gang show, you really want to create a gang that people want to be a part of, that they see themselves in, and that feel like family. You know, they feel like an unconventional family is really what you're aiming for.
Louise is at the palace. I've decided to spend the next few days with her.
I'm afraid I can't allow any change in your usual routine unless I'm informed otherwise. Sir.
Prince Leopold in the show is based on the real Prince Leopold, who was the youngest child of Queen Victoria. And he lived a very sheltered life. Queen Victoria was very smothered him, basically wouldn't let him leave the palace. And he actually married in the end, partly because he wanted to get out of the influence of Queen Victoria. So in our show, he's great because he brings all that baggage to the world, but also he is very different to the gang.
Just because you're a pathetic twat doesn't mean everyone else is.
Trying to figure out what the aesthetic of our show and what we wanted it to feel like was perhaps the most challenging part of the show. So we looked at shows that had done period, and not necessarily just Victorian, but any period drama in a fresh way. Things like Peaky Blinders is the most obvious reference for that, because it's just very cool. I think video games did have a big influence on us. A lot of our designers, Victor Milero was our main designer. He referenced video games like Assassin's Creed.
It was trying to give London a kind of like slightly hyper-real quality where it wasn't completely outlandish steampunk fantasy, but it also wasn't kind of grotty, too dirty, too Dickensian. It was finding that balance between reality and the kind of more heightened tone.
Demon walks amongst us.
So long as we can fight, we fight.
So if we don't find the rip, and close it, we're doomed.
This is just the beginning.